Good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa, science advisor Matt Moniz, and are we going to introduce you as spirit medium Stephanie Burke or
however you want to do it.
Psychic medium Steph? You know, I don't want to do that though because I don't want people to be like, oh, there's a psychic medium on the show tonight. We can call in and get readings because that's not what you're here for. You're a permanent
Right.
co-host now.
Have to come up with something.
Yeah, we'll have to come up with a catchy title. But apparently you're huge in what country was that person from?
Western Australia?
Yes, you're huge in Western Australia. So, and I've been getting a lot of positive emails and Facebook messages and what have you about Stephanie's joining the program.
That's awesome.
Actually, there were some 8th graders here earlier today from Roosevelt Middle School that were interviewing me for
cool.
a class project. And the first question they asked me is, so do you do the show on Saturday nights with Stephanie?
Really? That's awesome.
Apparently their grandfather knows your dad or something, so.
Maybe. We'll have to talk about that after.
Yeah.
Shout out to them, definitely. Anybody
Absolutely.
that wants to give us a shout out, let me know how I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've added you to the Spooky Crew at SpookySouthCoast.com email. So if you want to email us at that address, you can talk directly to Stephanie. You can talk to Stephanie about us. We'll see it, but whatever. We've got thick skins. And you can let us know how you like the new format of the program. And this is going to be the first time that we're all here together, the full panel. And Matt Costa and I were talking before we came on the air, and we're like, well, this is going to work out great, except for what are we going to do the next time we have a guest in the studio?
I was thinking that myself.
What are we going to do on the nights when we have 4 guests in the studio?
We'll kick my knees out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We've all shared microphones before. We'll just all make sure we brush our teeth a little extra hard before the show. And
I just brushed my teeth, just for the record.
yeah, well, I learned from a broadcast colleague of mine that you should brush your teeth right before you go on the air. Because what will happen is if there's anything stuck in your teeth at all, you're going to try to work it out on the air, and it's going to come out sounding like crap. So, but if you were watching on Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com, you could actually see me picking my teeth there with my tongue. And you can watch that both on our website as well as on WBSM.com. For those of you who are listening to the program via podcast, you never really tune into the show live. This is the reason why. If you've got nothing to do on a Saturday night, you want to tune in live and pay attention to what goes on Spooky TV, because you might see us picking our nose, you might see us playing on the internet, and that I want to clear up that misconception too, by the way, because people see us on Spooky TV. They'll see us on the computer. I'm always using this computer over here. They'll see us on our phones or whatever. You don't realize though we're tapping into the show in so many different ways. We've got the chat room, we've got the email, we've got the Twitter feed. We've got questions coming over Facebook. We've got all these different ways that we need to, and we'll be posting things up during the course of the show too. Like, here's the number to call in if you have any questions for our guests. So, we don't have time during these 2 hours to mess around. So, just wanted to let everybody know that, because the more cameras we have, the more every move that we do is going to be scrutinized. We would never disrespect the guests like that by playing on our phones when we're doing it. I mean, if we were just interviewing like Matt and Matt, I'd be over here playing Flappy Bird or something. But when we have a real guest like we will tonight, I still play it. I'm still trying to beat my 103.
I haven't deleted it.
I'm all about Jetpack Joyride now.
Oh yeah. There you are. Hey,
hello. How are you?
Actually, there'll be a new Flappy Bird coming out this summer. I saw online.
Really?
I'm gonna try swinging this over this way. Yeah, then I can see Matt. Right now, I got a picture of somebody in a bikini, so that's not. I'd rather. Yep, let's go back that way. There we go. But we will have the full program tonight because the Red Sox, thankfully, they lost in the 15th inning. So I set up tonight's show knowing that the Red Sox were on early. It was a 3:25 pregame, so it's like, well, there's no way the game's still going to be going on. We can book our guest, and our guest tonight is Peter Tower, who's written a new book called Hockomock, Place Where the Spirits Dwell. And we'll talk about the Hockomock Swamp, the Bridgewater Triangle, all aspects of that with him coming up in just a bit. But I was like, well, we're going to have a full show. I come in and the Red Sox are on. I'm like, oh, it must be a replay. And then I'm like, no, wait, the Red Sox are on the radio still. What the heck's going on here? And then I look and I see it's the 15th inning. I was like, oh, no. But, yeah, we could have been on time, but that was our fault. We'll get better. Just when we thought we had everything set and ready to go, we add new technology and it throws a monkey wrench into everything. But that's all right, because we're trying to make the show better. And for those of you watching on Spooky TV or watching on YouTube later on, you may see a little bit better quality wide shot. Are we on the wide shot? I don't know. All the lights are on, so I can't tell.
We'll do the slow transition.
So we've got the wide shot up there. That is our new HD super camera. It's got the bases weighted on it. It's got the little blue lights there. I call it the Tron Cam. And with that, we should have a better quality picture. And we're hoping to be able to put this show up and make it available for cable access shows. But we got to get a couple in the can first, and we got to edit them and set them up the way we want to do it, so that we can get them out there in the way that these networks want to have them. But maybe you run a cable access station, you'd be interested in carrying the program. Hit us up, spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com. Let us know what you need on our end, and then we'll start working it out so that we can upload it. So I know that we had some questions we had to figure out, right, Matt, about licensed music and what we can promote and all that.
Yeah, a little bit, but
see, here's the way I look at it. We're Spooky South Coast, so cable access stations should change their rules to accommodate us.
That's what I'm thinking.
I like that.
Instead of the other way around. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, so if we want to put our show on your network, and of course I'm kidding. We just got to figure out what it is that we can and can't do, because we want to still be able to promote Legend trips, that's for sure. We don't want to miss out on that. We still have 6 tickets left for the Murdoch Whitney House. We can't seem to move these last 6 tickets. So if you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence, buy it, please, because we've got another event waiting to be announced.
Your station for the South Coast.
That's right. And we are going to announce that as soon as we can move a few more of these tickets. So you don't want to miss out. This event is actually going to happen before the Murdoch Whitney House. This event's going to happen on June 28th, I believe. So you're not going to have a whole lot of time to move these tickets. So we need to get that announcement made. And also, if you'd like to come with us to the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast, we'll be doing an investigation there tied in with Terracon. It won't be a Legend Trips event, but it will be myself and Jeff Belanger running these ghost hunts there. Maybe some of the celebs from Terracon will come along, depending on how much space we have. And we're going to have people come in and conduct an investigation. They're going to get the tour. It'll just be, I think it's like 5 hours, and you'll still be able to get home and get plenty of rest so that you can get up and go to Terracon the next day and be there bright and early. So you can go to terracon.net to find out more about the convention itself, and also there you can purchase your tickets for the Lizzie Borden Ghost Hunt. And please, please do so in advance, because there's only 25 tickets for each night. We're doing it 2 nights, and you need to get those tickets right away, because they will sell out. And if we get to the point where we're selling the tickets, at Terracon, forget it. You would have no chance, because as soon as people walk by the Lizzie Borden booth and they see all the stuff that Leanne's going to have there, and they see the ghost cams running and everything that they're going to have going on, people are going to snatch up those tickets. So get them now while you can. You must purchase a Terracon ticket in advance in order to buy your ghost hunt ticket. However, if you go to seize the deal at WBSM.com, you can get single-day passes for Terracon half price.
That's a cool deal.
Half price, $12.50. You can get into Terracon for the day, and or $25 for the weekend. You can't go wrong. So make sure that you go to seize the deal at WBSM.com in order to take advantage of that. All right, that does it for all of the promotional plugging. Anything else we need to plug? No?
Silence.
All right, so that works. Are we going to get a little weird?
We are gonna get weird.
All right, let's do this. It's going to be the first full crew time that we get weird. So let me just move around here, because I didn't have my screen up. All right, here we go.
More bad news.
Well, I got a great show for you today with some wonderful weird stuff. I feel
All right, so the first official weird story of the week is from the Associated Press. This one is man stole bread truck and made deliveries. So a man stole a New York City bread truck, sorry about that, and began delivering loaves of baked goods to random businesses on Thursday. David Bastar hopped into the truck while the real driver was actually making a delivery into a pizzeria. The owner of the bakery said about $5,000 in bread was taken and dropped off at random unknown locations. No one was hurt and there was no damage to the truck. Bastar was eventually caught at LaGuardia Airport, where he was taken to a hospital for evaluation and was charged with criminal possession of stolen goods and driving without a license. What makes it weird? He was in his underwear, and only his underwear the whole entire time.
Maybe he thought he was the Pillsbury Doughboy.
He might have thought so.
Love it from the oven. You know what's interesting about that, Matt Costa, is his name was Dave, and he was a bread guy.
The bread guy?
So I'm wondering if it was the Dave the bread guy that we know. Maybe he just missed his calling, yeah, and decided to just do.
I don't know.
In his underwear?
In his underwear only.
Well, at least if he was just in his drawers, at least he wasn't pinching a loaf, right? Oh, you all know you wanted to go there.
I would love to know why nobody called it in that a strange man in his underwear was delivering random bread to random businesses, but I guess I think differently the rest
Well,
of
was
most
it
people.
random bread to random businesses, or was it his?
Oh, yeah.
Was it the actual
It wasn't-
deliveries on the route?
It wasn't the deliveries on the route. They have no idea where the bread went, but $5,000 in bread is missing.
So it wasn't. See, I was listening and I was thinking maybe he was like delivering the wrong bread. And,
Nope.
You know, because there's nothing worse working in the biz,
The bin.
than when you get your wrong bread order.
Nope, it was baguettes, sourdough bread, and it was just dropped off to random people throughout the day.
Well, at least I couldn't be like, is that a baguette in your pocket? Because he didn't have any pockets.
No, he did not. So that was weird number one. Weird number two, reported by Time Magazine. Time Magazine reports that a 14-year-old fan at an England event snapped a photo of a Michael Jackson lookalike, but caught more than what met the eye. He claims that he caught the ghost of Michael Jackson appearing at the event. He actually took a picture of an imposter signing autographs, and above it was a floating image of what he claims is the ghost of Michael Jackson wearing sunglasses in the afterlife. This isn't the first time this has happened. A lot of people have claimed to see his ghost. A lot of publicity is going around right now. He's been in music videos after his death, everything else. So when reviewing the photos a few days later with friends, he noticed what appears to be the ghostly image. The ghostly image appears to be wearing the sunglasses, like I said. It's floating above the head. I don't know if you guys have seen this picture or not. It's
Yeah, I think I saw that the other day.
it's a weird picture.
Matt, if you Google search Michael Jackson ghost and you go to the Time story, you should be able to bring it up on Spooky TV.
I thought it was pretty interesting. Time Magazine doesn't usually report things like this, so to me it kind of looks like a woman, but then again,
So did Michael Jackson, right?
I was going to say that.
Ah, see? I cut
So-
off your jokes.
You did. The 14-year-old actually claims he does not believe in ghosts, but it is quite spooky to him. His mother, on the other hand, swears it's real and definitely believes it's Michael Jackson. What do you guys think?
I mean, I don't know. I think the Michael Jackson impersonator looks more like MJ than the ghost itself.
I thought
but,
so too.
I mean, then again, you know, who knows how much work he's had done on the other side, too.
You never know what can happen. You are correct, but
I mean, when he's there, he's got the opportunity to, you know, to have all the best deceased plastic surgeons work on him.
it's very true. I did find it interesting that Time actually picked up the story.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like a humanoid, and I'm trying to look at it without that lens, over, you know, without that
I think you had the
That
right
prejudice.
word, lens. I think it's a lens refraction.
I mean, if you look at it, there's a good chance that it's a fingerprint on the lens of the camera itself. You know what I mean? Like, if you put a fingerprint smear on the camera, you're going to get that same type of coloration and effect. Am I right?
You would get some of it, but that looks more like an inverse reflection. Something to do with the lens catching and bending light from around the corner.
I mean,
somebody standing off in the off to the side.
He's wearing mirrored sunglasses and sequins, too.
Right.
So that could have something to do with it.
It is strange, no matter what we look
Now, we
at.
would have known it was Michael Jackson for sure if he had reached out and grabbed the little boy that was taking the picture. Oh, come here.
14's not too old?
No, just right.
Okay,
Just
good.
right. That's when they're the same age. That's when they can sleep in the same bed as friends. I don't know why I'm crapping on Michael Jackson. I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan.
Never speak ill of the dead, Tim.
If he's really dead.
You never know.
That hologram looked pretty damn convincing.
I wasn't sure if it was
Never
a publicity
speak ill
stunt.
of the dead with Tim? Are you kidding? Have you heard the dead speak ill of him?
I
That's true.
have.
I speak
But
ill of
I'm
the Grateful
present
Dead
this
all the time.
time.
They suck.
He can say whatever he wants without me here. Because they're not going to follow him home. They're going to follow me home. So, the weirdest of all, I had found this one on Coast to Coast. 3-year-old remembers past life, identifies murderer, and location of body. Have you guys heard of this story yet?
Oh, yeah.
No.
So, a 3-year-old boy living near the border of Syria and Israel said he was murdered with an axe in his previous life. He was born with a long red birthmark on his head. The way that his culture works is they believe that birthmarks are related to past life deaths. So I've heard that a few times before. I've heard stories of little kids usually before the age of 5 recounting things that have happened to them. Some actually can even write and speak in different languages perfectly. So when the boy was old enough to talk, he told his family he had been killed by a blow to the head with an axe. It's customary for elders in their village to take a child at the age of 3 to the home of his previous life if he remembers it. The boy knew the village he was from, so they went there. When they arrived in the village, the boy remembered the name he had in his past life. A village local said that the man the boy claimed to be the reincarnation of had gone missing 4 years earlier, so it was actually perfect timing. His friends and family thought he may have strayed into hostile territory nearby, as sometimes happens. The boy also remembered the full name of his killer. When he confronted the man, the alleged killer's face turned white. He did not admit to the murder, though. The boy then said he could take the elders to the spot where he was actually buried. In that very spot, they found a man's skeleton with a wound to the head that corresponded to the boy's birthmark, which also corresponded to a bludgeoning with the axe. They also found the axe, the murder weapon. Faced with this evidence, the murderer actually admitted to the crime.
Now, a lot of our friends who believe in reincarnation, they say that there's a waiting period, you
Yep.
know, and it's usually pretty considerable. But this sounds like, you know, it wasn't that long.
Right.
So I don't know. Either to be able to have that much evidence and then to go there and to have that much detail and then go there and have that much evidence.
Could also be something that's known as a walk-in.
Right. I mean, it could be that he's been, you know, the same way you could. He's picking up on these flashes of whatever, and he's associating it with the past life. But I don't know, it definitely is weird.
The thing that struck me was the actual details of it was just very strange. It was actually all recorded by someone that wrote a book who's done a lot of research into that before, so it was a little too weird not to talk about.
Unless maybe the kid was in on it.
You never know. From the womb, we started.
Right. Hey, you never know. So there you have it. That is the Week in Weird for this week. If you have any stories you would like to share with us, you can tweet them to us at SpookySC. We're going to take a break. When we come back on the other side, we'll be joined by our guest for tonight, Peter Tower, talking about his new book, Hockomock, Place Where the Spirits Dwell. And throughout the course of the night, you can feel free to call in with your questions, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. You can also tweet them to us at SpookySC, or you can also email them to us, spookykrew@spookysouthcoast.com. So we are going to take that quick break. When we come back, Peter Tower will be here to talk with us about Hockomock, the place where the spirits dwell. Stay tuned for more here on Spooky South Coast.
TrueCar.com. It's the new way to buy a car. Hey, it's
Welcome back to Spooky South Coast. That's Where the Hell Am I by Don O'Malley. Thank you, Don, for contributing that to the program. If you have any music you would like to share with us to play here on the show, you can just email us spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com. We're looking for music that is unlicensed. That's kind of the key, so that we can play it.
Should it be spooky?
Yeah, I mean, if it has a good vibe that fits the show, that's what we're really looking for. And we've been fortunate enough that we've gotten some contributions from people, and we're happy to play them here on the air. Just make sure that there's no, profane lyrics or anything either. So
Takes all the fun out of it.
I know it does, but we do what we have to do to make sure that we can have, what we need to get by, but also spotlight some of our listeners and show off some of their talent, because we do have some very talented listeners. And some of the music that we've been getting over the past few weeks is pretty cool stuff. But a lot of it too is electronica stuff that people have made on their computer. I'm waiting until the bands get together and they start just sending us the crap that they record when they're messing around. We're gonna get all the warm up stuff, but that's fine. We like it all. We'll play it all. And again, during the course of the night, if you would like to call in with any questions, 508-996-0500. 877-996-1420. You can get those numbers right from our website, wbsm.com or spookysouthcoast.com. The numbers are right there if you need to call in. You can also tweet us at SpookySC or email us spookykrew@spookysouthcoast.com. Now it's time to welcome in our guest for tonight. Peter Tower grew up in the Bridgewater Triangle on the edge of the Hockomock Swamp. As a boy, he played Indian, built forts, caught water bugs and turtles, and traveled through the swamp on top of old stone walls. Today, he and his family live in Vermont, where Peter works as a freelance writer and technology consultant to area corporations. In his free time, Peter enjoys studying Native American history, amateur archaeology, hiking in the mountains, and fishing the local lakes and rivers. And all the information about Peter and his book are linked up right on the front page of SpookySouthcoast.com. Please welcome to the program, Peter Tower. Good evening, Peter. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Tim?
Oh, we're spectacular, as we say here. And we are broadcasting from what I like to consider part of the Bridgewater Triangle, even though we're in Fairhaven, Massachusetts, and it doesn't fit the definition that Lauren Coleman came up with, or that Aaron Cadju and Manny Famulari have pushed in the Bridgewater Triangle documentary. I think that the South Coast falls in the Bridgewater Triangle because we've just got way too much activity happening here for it not to be.
I'll agree with that.
Well, we'll try to keep the paranormal occurrences in the studio to the minimum. So if anything goes wrong or goes haywire, it's just because we kind of suck at technology.
Fair enough.
So now you grew up in the Triangle itself. Do you want to say what town you grew up in?
Yeah, I grew up in Easton.
Okay, yeah. So you are right in the heart of you're a stone's throw from the Hockomock Swamp. So when you're there as a kid, what did the Hockomock represent to you as a youth growing up?
For me, it was a playground. I mean, I grew up when there was no play dates, and there was Easton was a farm town when I grew up there. And what I did after school is I just played out in the woods, out in the swamp, and we basically built forts and stuff and ran around down there. So to us, it was just a place to play.
And at what age did you start to realize that there was something a little bit different about the swamp?
I guess I never really saw it until a few years ago, until I actually started, until I grew up, started doing some research. It was hard to see it from the inside. As you guys probably know, when you're inside of a situation, it's really, sometimes it's kind of hard to understand the situation you're in. And I think that's the case for a lot of people that grow up down there in the Triangle. It's hard to understand what's going on unless you get a bird's eye view of it. So I saw little glimpses of it. I had an experience with a mad dog attacking me when I was about 12. And I always so saw the articles in the newspaper about the mystery cats, little strange cats bounding around. And that was about it when I was a kid. I never really quite got the full view of it, I guess.
Well, I mean, there's so many stories that come out of it too now that seem to have grown in intensity over the years. And I don't know how old you are, Peter, but I'm in my late 30s, and well, I'll stick with mid 30s for now. But I'm 36. Moniz is 114, and Matt Costa is close to my age, and Stephanie Burke is like 10 years younger than all of us. So
yeah, I'm a little older than you guys.
well, I don't think you can be older than Moniz. That's just not physically possible.
Not
But, it seems like, though, no matter what generation you come from, there are an extremely high level of reports from this area, and there's waves for a lot of paranormal activity. There's flaps for paranormal activity, but when it comes to the Hockomock and the Bridgewater Triangle as a whole, you don't deal in flaps. You deal in constants, which I think is very strange. To have this high strangeness all the time is pretty unique.
Yeah, and I agree. I guess that's why they call my book a paranormal history, I guess is what they're calling it,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of a weird term, but I guess it makes sense because I agree with you. I think it's been there all along, and the only way I could try to make sense of it is when I started doing research back in, I think it was 2006. I had to go. I took it all the way back to geologic time, back to when the glacier came down and when the first Paleo Indians came into the area, and all the way up to the Wampanoags and the other early settlers of the area in colonial days, to try to understand. I was trying to get that, that bird's eye view of why it was always happening, and maybe some common things between what was happening back then and what's happening today. So yes, I agree with you, Tim.
And it's interesting that they call your book a paranormal history because as I've been mentioning to people when they ask me about the book, this, if you're going to tell any story, the best place to start is the beginning. And you do go all the way back to the beginning of the formation of the Hockomock Swamp. It's not just about the human aspect of this story, which is where a lot of researchers have started in the past. This goes all the way back to the very beginning of how the swamp itself was created, yeah. and that must have taken an immense amount of research itself.
Yeah, it did. It's kind of funny. I tell people I'm finishing up a book for young adults now. I actually finished this book 4 years ago. Took me a few years to research, a few years to write, and it took me almost 4 years to find a publisher. And thankfully, Schiffer Publishing decided to put it out, but it took me an awful long time to get it out there. So yeah, it was a long process. I wanted to do it right. There were some other people who I talked to about publishing it, but they just wanted the scary stories, the stuff that flap in the 70s.
Sure, yeah.
And I kind of pushed back on that, and that's one of the reasons it took me so long to get it published, is because I wanted to get the history part in, because I felt that was important to put the area in context, I guess.
And it really is important because we don't know what factors are exactly causing these reports that still happen today, and it could be an amalgamation of all these different factors coming together for like a perfect storm. But when you go back and you look at the history, you can see something wasn't quite right with this area pretty much from the very beginning. And there seems to be something going all the way back to how it was created geologically speaking. There seems to be little strange turns of events that, if one thing had happened another way and the glacier had melted a little bit more to the left than to the right, we might not have the Hockomock Swamp as we have it today.
You're exactly right. I mean, it's the whole glacial lake thing, like Glacial Lake Taunton is one name for it, or the Leverett Sea. After the glacier pulled back, there was a lot of glacial lakes left across the country, but one of the large one was left down there. And there's something about that ancient sea thing where, it persisted for, they think, 300 to 400 years, and then, and that's how all the peat was formed. So the sea dries up, it leaves a giant swamp, and then the interesting part about that region that I found is that the the first place in New England settled by the Paleo people who came down 11 to 12,000 years ago. They all settled right in along the Taunton, right in along the Hockomock. So you have this giant sea drying up and giant wetland, and then you have these first peoples coming in and living there. So it's been settled for like an extremely, in our terms, an extremely long time. Yeah, so the geology kind of all plays into the cultural part of it too.
And it also plays into the legend of the Hockomock with some of these, the very first people that settled in this area. You know, they already came here with a reverence for it, and they already have this understanding that there's something different and there's something powerful about this region.
That could be. It's hard to say, you know. I mean, there's a lot of, as you guys know, with the paranormal topics, you're essentially speculating, right?
Sure.
Everyone's speculating, so there's a lot of speculation involved. But I tried to put myself. I did as much research as I could. I read everything I could for a long time about you know, everything from the Wampanoags to the paranormal to religion and metaphysics. You try to put it all together, and ultimately, I think you just giving it your best shot. And I put my head against it for a long time and did the best job I could and gave it my shot. You know, it is what it is. I mean, whether it's any better than anyone else's guess, I don't know. But
well, when you're coming at the idea of putting this together and chronicling the history of the Hockomock, what is kind of the driving force in your mind of telling the story? Are you thinking that you want to approach it from a paranormal aspect? Because, I mean, in terms of, you know, marketability for a book, sure, the paranormal aspect of the Hockomock is probably what it's most famous for these days. But there's so much more to the story about that as being this really one of the last few uncivilized areas of southeastern Massachusetts. And throughout the book, you can tell that you personally revere the area and that you personally have an affinity for it.
I went in with an open mind, Tim. I just happened to grow up down there, and it's one of the last remaining wilderness areas in Massachusetts or in New England. I was interested in that because I do a lot of nature writing too. So I went in with an open mind, and I was aware of all this strange stuff. So I just kind of went in. I was curious. I wanted to understand what the place was, and I originally went in thinking cryptozoology. I wanted to write. To be honest with you, I wanted to write more about the environmental aspect of it,
mm-hmm.
because it's a pristine place. It's a beautiful place, but it very quickly took a turn. Where I kind of, after talking and interviewing people from the 70s and hiking, I did a lot of hiking through there by myself. I very quickly realized, you know, it's not what the place is about. So it took a turn for me into the paranormal very quickly, and it was a place that I didn't really want to go, to be honest with you. I had no background writing about the paranormal or not too much interest in it. But I said, okay,
Newer
this
station
is a
for
place
the
I'm going to write
Southcoast.
about, and this is clearly what it's about. So I just took that route.
And that's kind of the story that the Hockomock seems to want to tell itself. You know, that's the story that again and again everything goes back to, and I think that's because that's the message that if you want to look at the swamp as a living entity, you know, that's the story that it's trying to portray. But you mentioned covering it from the environmental factor, and I think that that's very important, especially now with all the talk of Southcoast Rail coming down to our neck of the woods. It's basically going to bisect the Hockomock Swamp and completely change the entire landscape of that area. So it's important to let people know what's going on there, at least from a environmental impact standpoint.
Yeah, and I did do a chapter called Wonder Wetland, which there was a lot of great work done by Kathleen Anderson, who's one of the environmental leaders in Massachusetts, and some other people who set the Hockomock aside as conservation land. And one of the people that did that was State Senator John Ames. And it was fascinating to me because John lobbied it through and put it through the Massachusetts state legislature to set aside the swamp as a conservation area. But his great-grandfather, Oliver Ames Jr., was actually the one who built the original railroad line through the swamp. The old leg, the old railroad bed, the hike up.
Mm-hmm.
So John's, I think it was his great-grandfather, set that. He built it, and then John set it aside as conservation land, and now they're going back to try to open up Oliver Jr.'s railroad bed and rebuild it. So it's kind of this strange story within a story there with the Ameses, and they were very helpful to me. They actually opened up Oliver Jr.'s diary and sent me some stuff about, when he was down there in 20 feet of muck trying to build the railroad through there on that bed, which I used to hike up and down that railroad bed when I was doing research.
Was there anyone who stonewalled you in your attempt to kind of capture the essence of the Hockomock and gather all this information? Was there anybody who didn't want to talk to you or didn't want to share?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I did change a few of the names in the book. You guys know how these things work, right? So you see something and you report it, and usually it doesn't work out that well for you.
Right. Yeah. There's.
Like in my dedication, I say this is for all those who saw, spoke, and paid the price. I dedicated my book to those people because I met so many of them that, you just regular people like us who happen to see something strange and they talk about it. Next thing you know, they lose their job or they get ostracized by the community they live in. So yeah, some of those people, a few of them, they didn't want to talk about it. They were very bitter about what happened to them after they saw certain things, and I didn't blame them.
Well, what about the Wampanoag tribe? I know that they're notoriously tight-lipped, even in discussing their own history. They have an issue, and whenever we've tried to contact them in the past, I've had I've gotten to the point where I've become very close to having them come on the program, representatives of the tribe come on, and then without question, every single time they back out.
Well, I would say to that, Tim, I mean, I have a lot of respect for their people, their history. The problem I find when I'm doing research with the Wampanoags is that they didn't write anything down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to really assess their level of knowledge. So what I did is I went back. The fact is that the colonial writings, like Governor Bradford's writings and Winslow and all these guys, these guys took good notes. They made good observations and they wrote it all down. And most of the things I found, William Wood included. Most of the good information about the Indians was written by the colonial white settlers. It's kind of ironic, but unfortunately, that's kind of the way it is, I think.
Was there a certain prejudice that came through in their writings? Were they viewing it through a particular subjective lens?
So it's kind of hard for me. I'm actually a Mayflower descendant. That's where I come from. I'm related to about 10 of those people.
Okay.
So I'm a little bit biased. Yeah, they are prejudiced, but I will say that I think they were right on. This book is a little bit different in that it's not. I would say it's not particularly politically correct for these times. It's definitely coming out on the side of the Pilgrims. I think they did a lot of things right. I know that a lot of people look down on the way they acted, but after doing a lot of research, I actually found that I thought that they were right in a lot of their thoughts and the way that they reacted to the whole situation they were in.
Well, and it's difficult too because a lot of the past writings and the past histories and recollections are so open-ended. Take, for example, something like Dighton Rock. We've had hundreds of years to try to come up with an answer, and still nobody really has. And it's become one of those mysteries that we prefer to leave unresolved. because the speculation is probably a better story than the actual truth behind it.
Yeah, and that's the case, Tim. I think where on the part of my ancestors there is bias, and I think I made that clear on my chapter on Dighton Rock. I did a lot of research on Dighton Rock. Fascinating stuff to me. Professor Edmund Burke Delberry from Brown, and all the work he did. It's an absolutely fascinating archaeological artifact, probably the most interesting thing in the archaeological artifact in the world. Massachusetts shoved it away in a little museum. I went down to Dighton Rock and saw it. It's on the banks of the Taunton, a little museum they got down there. And yeah, I think that might be a little prejudice on the part of Massachusetts, where there's a big Portuguese. There's a claim by the Portuguese there to potentially being the first settlers of the United States. I think I left it in the chapter. They need more evidence, but yeah, Massachusetts didn't necessarily. We've got Plymouth Rock, right? So
which isn't the rock, but we don't tell the tourists that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, but Dighton Rock, I have to say that I think probably the most interesting for me, one of the most interesting things for me about the whole book is the Dighton Rock part. I didn't know about it. I started researching it, and it's fascinating how that rock actually changed history. Where the Danes, the Danish Historical Society, basically they perpetrated a fraud off Dighton Rock. So for at least almost 100 years, people believed that there was proof that the Vikings were in Rhode Island. Not to say that they weren't there, but they didn't really have the proof. But they perpetrated this fraud based on Dighton Rock, and for almost 100 years, the whole world believed that the Vikings came just because of the writings on Dighton Rock.
Well, it's
fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and it's sad to say, I've lived in this area for over 20 years now, and I never heard of Dighton Rock until we started doing this program. And when it came up in discussions about, the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yeah, so 200 years ago, that was probably the most talked about archaeological artifact in the entire world.
And now it's shoved away in a little corner. And
massive debates between Harvard, Yale, University of Copenhagen, all around Europe. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's funny because I was kind of mixed. I had mixed feelings about including it, and then eventually I came to the conclusion: hey, this is just another mystery of this whole place.
Mm-hmm. And it's a key part of the history of the Hockomock area, because not having those answers is just par for the course when it comes to dealing with things around the Hockomock Swamp.
Exactly, it's just another mystery. It's like a network of a mesh of mysteries.
And it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. And we'll get deeper into it coming up in the next hour. We only have a few minutes here before we have to take a break for the network news. When we come back on the other side, I would like to talk more about the actual, the genesis of it becoming known as the Hockomock Swamp, how the natives saw it, and some of the clashes between the natives and the colonials, and how that led to kind of the scarring that's on that area today.
Okay, sounds good, Tim.
All right, and during the course of the break, if anybody would like to check out the book for themselves or purchase a copy, you can do so by going to SpookySouthcoast.com and clicking right on either the picture or on Peter Tower's name there, and you can have a direct link to purchase the site from Schiffer's website, purchase the book from Schiffer's website, and it's a beautiful book, and it's a heavy volume. I mean, you're going to be getting some good history out of this, so you'll have your chance to really get into the nuts and bolts of what makes the Hockomock Swamp. Also, during the break, if you would like to get those TerraCon tickets, you can do so by going to WBSM.com, clicking on the Seize the Deal tab. You can pick them up now. You're getting tickets for half off. You're going to get the chance to go and say hi to so many great celebrities. Linda Blair is going to be there. Dee Wallace will be there. In fact, Dee Wallace may be joining us on the program for a little bit next Saturday night. We're waiting to kind of work that out. And then also, because she, in addition to being an actress now, she goes and she does a lot of seminars for people. And I'm sure at a lot of the places where you've gone and done things, Stephanie. And so she's in this region for a couple of weeks in addition to being at TerraCon. and as well as there's so many horror movie actors. You know, Kane Hodder is going to be there. Who else is the
There's
two leads
so
from
many.
Grimm? So many people. Wrestling stars such as Kane, WWE superstar Kane, and of course on the paranormal side of things, Amy Bruni and Adam Berry from Ghost Hunters, Jeff Belanger, Keith and Sandra Johnson, Joe Chin, Spooky Southcoast will be represented as well. I know that Stephanie will be there.
Yes, I will.
I'll be there. Hopefully Matt and Matt will be able to make it. And we're going to have a film festival. The Bridgewater Triangle documentary is going to be shown. So all the stuff that we're talking about tonight is covered as well. A lot of it in the documentary. And you'll get your chance to see it there and talk with Aaron and Manny about the film. And I told Steve Perry, the organizer, I'm taking over one of the rooms. And we're just going to have all paranormal talks both days.
There you
So
go.
if we can work that out, we should have some pretty fascinating discussion going on. And also, again, legendtrips.com to get our tickets to the Murdoch Whitney House. And when you get your tickets to Terracon, you can also get tickets to our investigation of the Lizzie Borden House tied in with that event. So we do have to take a break for the news. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk more with Peter Tower about the Hockomock Swamp and so much more coming up here on Spooky South Coast.
Local news, talk, and sports. The South Coast turns to AM 1420 WBSM New Bedford.